What truly separates a great ruler from a terrible one? Is it the laws, the battles, or the legacy they leave behind? Some kings shaped nations not with wisdom but with cruelty. Today, we journey into the darkest corners of royal courts and blood-soaked fields, counting down the top 5 most ruthless kings in history. These men ruled with fear and brutality, leaving legacies that still chill us centuries later. Their stories are filled with betrayal, paranoia, and a thirst for power that shattered countless lives. We'll explore what drove these monarchs to such unspeakable acts. Was it desperation, strategy, or something darker? Join me as we peel back the layers of history to reveal the terrifying truth behind the crown. Our countdown begins with King John of England, a ruler infamous for losing not only an empire, but also the trust and respect of his people. A king whose name became synonymous with tyranny and failure. His subjects, from the highest noble to the humblest peasant, turned their backs on him, their loyalty eroded by years of misrule and broken promises. Known as John Lackland, his reign was defined by paranoia and cruelty that went far beyond the battlefield. He was a man haunted by insecurity, lashing out at real and imagined enemies alike. John's enemies weren't just foreign. He saw traitors everywhere, even among friends and family. No one was safe from his suspicion, not his closest advisors, nor his own kin. The fate of Matilda de Braose and her son William is a chilling example. After falling out of favor, they were imprisoned and left to starve in Windsor Castle, their deaths a message to all who opposed him. Such acts of calculated cruelty sent shockwaves through the kingdom, instilling fear in the hearts of those who might dare to cross him. This wasn't an isolated act. John's rule was marked by betrayal, extortion, and a relentless drive to crush dissent. He turned on allies without warning, and his word was worth little. He taxed his barons into poverty, broke promises, and used his power for personal vendettas. Even the wealthiest nobles found themselves squeezed dry, their fortunes drained to fund John's endless wars and personal luxuries. His cruelty sparked rebellion. The barons, pushed to the brink, forced him to sign the Magna Carta in 1215, a desperate attempt to restrain a king who knew no bounds. This historic document, now celebrated as a cornerstone of liberty, was born out of sheer necessity to curb John's abuses. But John had no intention of honoring it. He renounced the charter almost immediately, plunging England into civil war and inviting foreign mercenaries to ravage his own country. Villages burned, families were torn apart, and the land was left scarred by his refusal to compromise. His economic policies were equally destructive: debasement of currency, seizure of lands, and the relentless exploitation of his subjects left England fractured and impoverished. The kingdom's wealth vanished, replaced by ruin and resentment. John was universally loathed by nobility, clergy, and commoners alike. Chroniclers called him a stain upon the nation, and even the church excommunicated him, leaving him isolated in both life and death. His end was as miserable as his reign. After losing the crown jewels in a tidal estuary, he died of dysentery, hated and alone. His final days were marked by paranoia and regret, with no loyal friends at his side. King John's legacy is one of infamy, a warning of how paranoia and cruelty can bring a kingdom to its knees. His reign left scars that would take generations to heal. He ruled with a poisoned heart, leaving behind fear, division, and a desperate charter of liberties born from the need to contain him. The Magna Carta, once a symbol of hope, was a testament to the darkness of his rule. He was, in every sense, a truly ruthless king, one whose memory endures as a cautionary tale of unchecked power and the devastation it can bring. Next, we turn to King Henry VIII, a monarch whose reign was defined by bloodshed and fear, and who made execution a national spectacle that gripped the entire country. Henry's desperate quest for a male heir led him to break with the Catholic Church, declaring himself supreme head of the Church of England. This seismic decision not only changed the course of English history, but also unleashed decades of religious and political turmoil, marked by violence and persecution. His cruelty was deeply personal. 2 of his 6 wives, Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, were executed on charges of adultery and treason. Their deaths were not just punishments, but public displays of his absolute power, meant to instill fear in both the court and the common people. Friends and advisors weren't safe either. Sir Thomas More and Thomas Cromwell, once close allies and trusted confidants, were beheaded when they fell out of favor, showing that no one was beyond the reach of Henry's wrath. During his reign, an estimated 72,000 people were executed. Loyalty was enforced through terror and intimidation. Methods were brutal. Hanging, beheading, and even more gruesome punishments awaited those who defied the king. Being hung, drawn, and quartered became a form of public entertainment, with crowds gathering to witness the grisly fate of traitors and dissenters. The spectacle of death was used to remind everyone of the king's absolute authority. Henry's religious reforms included the violent dissolution of the monasteries, which destroyed centuries-old centers of learning, culture, and charity. Thousands of monks and nuns were cast out, and the poor who depended on their aid were left destitute and desperate. Uprisings like the Pilgrimage of Grace were crushed with ruthless efficiency. Promises of pardon were often followed by mass executions, as Henry sought to stamp out any hint of rebellion and maintain his iron grip on the nation. Historians believe a jousting accident left Henry with a severe head injury, which may have transformed him from a promising, charismatic prince into a paranoid, explosive tyrant prone to fits of rage and suspicion. He ruled by fear, creating a court where a single careless word or rumor could mean death. Nobles and servants alike lived in constant anxiety, never knowing who might be next. Henry left England divided, financially strained and traumatized by decades of violence. The scars of his rule would linger for generations, shaping the nation's future. He was not just a king who executed people. He was the executioner king, a ruler whose legacy is forever stained by blood and fear. Now we travel to the era of the Norman Conquest and William the Conqueror, a king whose reputation for ruthlessness was forged in the fires of war and ambition. William seized the English throne by force, defeating Harold at Hastings. But when rebellion flared in the north, his response was not just swift, it was annihilation on a scale rarely seen in medieval Europe. The harrying of the north was a campaign of scorched-earth brutality. Entire villages were burned to the ground, livestock slaughtered, and food stores destroyed, leaving nothing for survivors to cling to. The Domesday Book, England's Great Survey, later recorded vast regions as waste, deliberately erased by William's orders, a testament to the devastation he unleashed. The human cost was catastrophic. Tens of thousands perished from famine and disease, with some chroniclers reporting cannibalism among the starving. The land itself seemed to mourn, stripped bare and silent. William's goal was simple and merciless: crush resistance forever. The north was left depopulated and impoverished for generations, its people scattered or dead, its fields untended and empty. He replaced the English aristocracy with loyal Norman barons, imposing a new order and erasing the traditions of Anglo-Saxon England. The old ruling class was swept away, their lands and titles seized. Castles like the Tower of London rose across the landscape, permanent reminders of Norman dominance and the iron grip of their rule. Even William's death was violent and ignominious. His body burst at his funeral, a grotesque end for a man who had filled his kingdom with death and fear. William was not just a ruthless king, he was a nation-breaker, forging the foundations of modern England through fire, famine, and relentless force. The harrying of the North stands as one of history's most brutal acts by a monarch against his own people, a chilling reminder of the price of conquest and the shadow it casts through the centuries. Our next king is Edward I, Longshanks, the Hammer of the Scots. Edward's ambition was to unite Great Britain, not through diplomacy, but through relentless conquest. He crushed Wales, building imposing castles to dominate the land and extinguish Welsh identity. In Scotland, Edward's ruthlessness reached new heights. When the Scots resisted, he unleashed a campaign of terror. The massacre at Berwick-upon-Tweed saw men, women, and children slaughtered, the river running red for days. This was the start of the Wars of Scottish Independence, immortalized in legend and film. Edward's treatment of William Wallace was especially brutal. Wallace was hung, drawn, and quartered, his remains scattered as a warning. Edward's cruelty extended beyond war. In 1290, he expelled all Jews from England, seizing their property and forcing them into exile. His laws consolidated his own power, and his crusading zeal was often turned against his neighbors. Edward saw compromise as weakness and resistance as a crime punishable by annihilation. He reshaped Britain through brute force, leaving a legacy written in blood and stone. Edward I was powerful and effective, but profoundly ruthless. Our final king is Richard III, a name synonymous with villainy. His reign lasted just 2 years, but his reputation for treachery has endured for centuries. After his brother's death, Richard became Lord Protector for his young nephews, Edward V and Richard, Duke of York. Instead of preparing for Edward's coronation, Richard seized power, declaring the boys illegitimate and claiming the throne. The princes were last seen playing in the Tower of London, then vanished, never to be seen again. The prevailing belief: Richard had them murdered to secure his crown. This alleged act defined his legacy, overshadowing any achievements. He executed rivals without trial and ruled with paranoia, knowing his claim rested on betrayal and likely murder. Richard's reign ended at Bosworth Field, defeated by Henry VIII, whose dynasty had every reason to blacken his name. Modern historians debate his guilt, but the mystery of the princes in the Tower remains unsolved. For over 500 years, Richard III has stood as the ultimate symbol of ruthless ambition, a king willing to sacrifice his own family for power. We've journeyed through the darkest chapters of royal history, witnessing how the thirst for power can turn rulers into tyrants. These 5 kings left legacies of fear and bloodshed that time cannot erase. Their stories are cautionary tales about the corrupting nature of absolute power. Now, the verdict falls to you. Who was the most ruthless? Was it William's devastation, Henry's executions, Edward's conquests, John's cruelty, or Richard's betrayal? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. And if you want to explore more of history's darkest tales, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, remember, the crown can create monsters,